welcome to the one and only Team 2.
Hey guys, how are we doing? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, June the 10th, 2024. I hope you had a great weekend or are having a great long weekend. You sort of forget sometimes with the King's birthday now when it comes around. So even though it's in the middle of winter or the start of winter, it's always good to get that extra day off, isn't it? So always a big show. We've got plenty to talk about. I've just got some of the points there. We've got, see, Sky Nicholson's been scheduled for a fight. I see the Premier Boxing Series, is it the fourth or fifth one, has been released. So we'll go through that as well. On the world scene, actually on that Premier Boxing Series, I think we've got a show next week in Melbourne as well. So anyway, that's just the Australian stuff. So much to get through as always, but we've got a couple in the chat already. What do you got there, Big J? How you going there, mate? I hope you had, as I said, a good long weekend so far. This is, what do you got there? First comment. Oh, yes, it is fight week. I forgot about that. It is Liam Paro up against Subriel Matias in Puerto Rico this weekend. So first comment to you, mate. What do you got there? I really don't like Paro's chances this week, along with Goodman and the Russian young fella. They'll be a one and done at title shots, all get destroyed badly and never be heard from again. Yeah, well, there's lots of those sort of comments getting around. Big J, I agree. Actually, before I get into that, mate, one thing, at about 7:15, so this is if you're watching live, of course, we are going to have Will Tomlinson on just quickly to have a quick chat about his show on June 29th. He's got a show in Melbourne on the 29th of June. So as I said, we'll have a quick chat to him in about 15 minutes' time. All right, so just on that, Big J, look, yeah, I would think that Paro would probably have a little bit better chance than Mikhailovic, I would think. Look, credit to him for taking the fight. That's probably the first thing, because Janabek is an absolute killer. But he stepped up, and he's, from what he said so far, he's looking forward to the challenge. And you know, I mean, it's a bit like the Sam Goodman situation with Inouye, isn't it? You just got to take your chance when it comes, and you just never know when or what will happen when that opportunity arises. And with Paro, yeah, look, make no mistake, he's up against it. Let's not beat around the bush. But I really like the kid. I know he's probably a little bit untested. You know, the biggest win's probably the Montana Love fight. But having said that, Matias has got the reputation of being one of the dominant fighters in the division, but hasn't really had a big win anyway. So I'm giving Paro a good chance. Does he win? Look, it's going to be ultra tough in Puerto Rico. But look, I just think he's a great young fighter. Well, I won't say great. That word gets thrown around a fair bit, doesn't it? A very, very good young fighter. He can box, he can punch, good footwork, good speed. So I think he's in with a chance. But I'm with you, Big J. He's up against it. And just on that fight, by the way, on Sunday morning here in Australia at 10 a.m. I think the show or the card starts at 9 a.m. I'll go live at 10 for the live watch along. So if you're watching yourself and want someone to watch it with other people, then we can do that. If you can't watch it, you're at work or at a family function or something, I don't know, well, you can tune in as well. And of course, if you just don't want to pay for it, actually, I don't think it's you don't have to pay for it. It's just on DAZN. So either way, whatever situation suits you, then again, I'll be on at 10 a.m. Sunday, Australian Eastern time from 10 a.m. All right, we've got Carl in the chat as well. It's Paro's time to shine. Great to have you along, Carl. There's Colin. Good evening, all. Really looking forward to next weekend's card. Yeah, it should be a really good a card or long weekend. Oh, not a long weekend. This is the long weekend. A weekend of cards, I should say. Of course, we've got the Javante Tank Davis and David Benavides fights on Sunday as well. So I'd like to be able to do them both, but I think the Paro card starts at 9 and the Tank Davis card starts at 10. Really come down to which one you're going to take. I'm going to go for the Aussie, of course, and especially that the Davis card's $50. I'm not quite sure it's worth that amount of money, but I might do a review of that. I'll watch it later. But yeah, Colin, if you're around, mate, Sunday morning, keep a lookout for the live updates and the I suppose you'll call it commentary as we go on Sunday morning. All right, Mutsy, is a Winwood fight on 7+ on Wednesday. Is there fights on this Wednesday? I thought it was next Wednesday. Mutsy, he's not on the Melbourne card, and I don't think he was on the one the week after. The month after. So I've got here on. So next week it's Mitch Leake, Jack Brubaker, Lucas Miller, Matt Sheehan. That's the two main fights. On July 20th, Jalen Tate, Ibrahim Bala, Dylan Biggs, Marcus Hayward. They're probably, and Rocky Ogden's got the rematch as well with Yang, who beat him in his last fight. So I'm not quite sure if he's fighting this Wednesday, mate. I don't think it's on 7+. It might be on Stan, but I must admit I haven't really seen much about that, mate. Fill us in. Hey, David, hello to you as well there, mate. And Carl, yeah, Jalen Tate, Ibrahim Bala. What's your thoughts? I think it's a banger. Will be a really good fight. I actually promoted probably about 6 or 7 fights of Ibrahim Bala. Unfortunately, promoted his 2 losses. That was in 2016 was his first loss. That was against, what was his name? Neil Tabernayo was his name. And then he got knocked out in a couple of rounds in 2018, and that was sort of it for Ibby for, about 3 years? 4 years even, I think it was. And he came back, had a couple of wins, and then he's obviously had the win over Yusuf Dib, and now this one. So, look, I think it's a really good fight. Look, I think Jalen Tate I would probably favour in that one, but don't underestimate Ibrahim Bala, former Olympian. The guy can fight. And looks refreshed, regenerated, if you will. So I think that's a really good fight. But I think Jalen Tate, really good young talent, and I'd expect him to win that fight, mate. But either way, great main event to have on that platform, which is what it's about. I hope that No Limit maybe look at this example for 7+ to put on the Fox Sports series that they do as well. Great, just put a really good main event on, and that is a really good main event. And they've got a whole stable of young Aussie fighters out there. We want Aussies versus Aussies. I think that is the key to these fight nights. Have to be Aussies versus Aussies. This is what whether it be the 7+ cards, the Premier Boxing Series that is, or the Fox. What is it? No Limit on Fox, I think it's called. Got to have Aussie versus Aussies in the main event, and the ones they've actually done both on the Premier Boxing Series and also on No Limit, that Aussies versus Aussies just really create good fights and a lot of interest in the event. So let's hope they go with that. But I'm going to, as much as I probably don't want to, Carl, I'm probably have to stick with Jalen Tate in that one there, mate. Double G, how you going there, mate? Riddle me this. Okay, I'll just take a deep breath. Here we go. If Ortiz can now fight Boychuk for a title, why did you think Tim even chose to fight Virgil rather than chase Boychuk himself? Bad management? Perhaps Boychuk declined. Very good question, Double G. Now, lots of things being thrown up about the whole Tim Tszyu, Virgil Ortiz situation. And look, I don't have any inside word apart from people in the industry that talk and know somebody that knows somebody who spoke to somebody, those sorts of things. So, but I'll raise the question again. I'm just a little bit perplexed how that fight, the Tszyu and Ortiz fight I'm speaking of, how it was signed, announced, without even the inspection from the doctors, which came, 5 or 6 weeks after it was announced. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It just doesn't. But the point you made there is interesting. So I'll just read that again. So if Ortiz can now fight Boychuk, which looks like it's going to happen, why did you think Tim even chose to fight? Yeah, it's a good question. Very good question. And that was going to be for an interim belt, so it's not really the belt, although the WBC belt with Boychuk is interim as well, I gather, isn't it? So it's a good question, mate. But I suppose if you look at both of them, one's for the interim WBA, one's for the interim WBC, so maybe it's a bit same, I suppose. But I don't know, Double G. I can't answer that riddle, I'm afraid, because there's so many different maybe scenarios involved there. But again, I'll say it. How do you sign a fight and announce the fight without even getting approved by the doctor? So I've just got Will joining in a sec here. I'll get him on in a second. But yeah, it's a good question, Double G. I can't answer that, mate. Actually, before we get going there, we'll get a comment from Carl. I think it will be Matthias's biggest test. Yeah, I think so. I think 100% it will. Yeah. Really looking forward to Tank fighting another prospect. Yep, tough test for him as well there, Carl. I think Davis and Martin will be a cracker. One more comment. Evening to you as well there, Kyle. Welcome to the show. All right, guys, what I'm going to do is bring Will Tomlinson in here. As a good promoter is, he's early. He's about 5 minutes, but we'll bring him in straight away. And there he is there. How you going, Will?
Hey, how are you, Lyndon? About
Good, mate.
time, mate.
Yeah, well, I haven't really had a lot of people on for interviews lately, mate. Especially with this show, we go for 2 hours and it's pretty much jam-packed the whole way. We barely have time to have people on. But, mate, see you doing great things. You've got another promotion coming up on June 29th, which is a great day. It just happens to be my birthday.
There you go. You coming?
Yeah, I might have to. Yeah, well, maybe I might. I think the family might have something planned, but you never know, mate. We'll see.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, yeah, no, it's gonna be a really good show. We got I reckon it's my best card yet that I've put together. It's our first event that's featuring a version of the world title, which I'm pretty amped about. So young Max Reeves is getting a shot against Tonga, who's 7-0, 7 knockouts.
Can you say that again? What's his name? Tonga.
No, I've got it down pat now. I've started it. Tonga. Pretty simple, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's fighting. That's who Max is fighting, and in my opinion, it's a very credible fight for the title. It is the IBO light heavyweight youth world title. So both boys, it's either they have to be under 25 or 26. I can't recall, but either they're both under that age limit, and both definitely credible, worthy opponents for that type of fight.
I see the girls on there as well. Looks like a really good fight. It's Taylor Jensen and DD Hobbs. Looks like a good one.
So the semi-main, Taylor Jensen, who I'm very excited to be working with now. She's going to be a regular feature on the Wildfighter cards. And she's fighting DD Hobbs, who's super experienced, a very credible fighter herself. Yeah, active. She's coming off a pretty close points win over
Angel Rushton.
Was a bit of a funny fight to watch, but I definitely thought she got the job done. And so she's against Taylor. They're fighting for the WBA Oceania lightweight title. So hopefully with that win or another win following that, the winner would find themselves in the world rankings and in line for a title shot in the near future.
And where is it? The Pullman in Melbourne?
Yeah, so my the new venue I'm using at the moment, this will be my fourth show there. It's the Pullman Hotel in Albert Park on Queens Road. Beautiful space, holds about 1,500 people. I really like it because it's all in house. Like you have the weigh-ins there, everybody stays there, everyone hangs around in the lobby and stuff.
Yeah, beautiful venue.
In between those occasions, and obviously fight nights there as well. So it's all really central and makes the whole process a lot more streamlined, which is what you want as a promoter. And it's great. It's a great space, and everyone seems to enjoy it. But it's all about the fights. It's all about putting on good matchups to attract the audience. The venue's not going to sell a show. It's all about the matchups and genuine fights and good marketing, and that's what the fans pay to see.
So tell us about the promotion game at the moment. I've obviously been out of it for about 4 years now. I did my show last show just before COVID. So how is it these days? Has it recovered since COVID? Are we getting the crowds back? Are the fighters back amongst it? How's it all sort of started up again since COVID?
Yeah, I think it's definitely healed since COVID. I think what I've learned through my time as a promoter, you put on a quality fight and the fans will come. You put on shit, it's going to be a tough sell. So every time I've got good matchups. It obviously starts with a really strong main event, something that you can genuinely market well, and people and fans are genuinely interested to hear about, read about, and obviously watch, buy a ticket and watch. But then, on other cards, when I've gotten a bit, unfortunate luck or slacked off a little bit and put together an average card, it's a tough sell. So one thing that I've learned through COVID, or one thing that highlighted me, from the post COVID, is it's all about putting on quality events and something that people are genuinely going to see value in watching. Because obviously now everyone's a bit tight for cash, so they don't want to be just throwing 150, $200 at a ticket to watch a shit show. They want to go to a quality event, and that's all. From obviously the fights first and foremost, but then from the in venue experience as well.
So with the fight tickets and everything, so that'll be what your website or?
Yeah, so all the tickets are everything's a very centralized spot via the Wildfighter website. Ticket details, live stream details, everything can be purchased and accessed via that platform. So I like to keep it all pretty tight. No physical tickets, no ticket sales on the door. It's all pre-purchased, and it's that's some people think it's difficult going online, but it's actually so much easier. So
Well,
much
you
easier.
do it when you go to the football and stuff, don't you, or a concert or whatever.
Yeah,
You get it online. It's so different, is it?
yeah, exactly.
So
But it's all going good, mate.
that's good. So we've mentioned the two main fights in the card. Who are some of the other up and comers on the
Yeah,
undercard?
another one I'm really looking forward to is two of the best welterweights that we have in the country. Caesar Afghan,
I saw that.
Wildfighter Boy, fighting Lachlan O'Shea, both coming off very, very close point losses to Australian champion. I was going to say Julian Holland then for some reason.
They're ranked number
Um,
2 and 3, aren't they, in
yeah,
Australia? I think. Yeah.
Joel Taylor.
Yeah.
Joel Taylor.
Yeah.
I don't know how Julian Holland
Julian
popped into
Holland.
my life. He's back in your era.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I'm sure he'll appreciate getting a bit of a shout out anyway, though, mate. But
Yeah.
so the Caesar
Yeah. Yes.
African fight, that'll be a
Yeah.
ripper.
Yeah, so that's a very good fight. You got the tough Queenslander Southpaw from coming down to take on Caesar, the fast, smart, evasive, calculated boxer. So that should resonate into a really entertaining fight. It's again like 50-50 fight, hard to pick a winner. So everyone will just have to tune in and see the outcome.
So with the current landscape with promotions in Australia, mate, I want to get your thoughts on it. As again, I've been out of it for so long. So with so many with the promoters and the TV agreements and all that sort of stuff, how does that all work with everything? And especially, how do you potentially fit in with that at the moment as well?
So currently at the moment, I'm just doing my best to continue to put on good events, good fights. Have a good online presence. Start building and developing talent, so that when the right opportunity comes up, I'll be well placed to snatch it up or attempt to snatch it up. Try my best to where economically possible to work in with whatever promoter wants to work in with me. I've got good relationships with a lot of promoters around Australia. So it's makes it kind of definitely not easy. It's never an easy process matching a card, but it's crucial that you got good relationships around the country to be able to put together good cards, because you can't just rely on your immediate state or network of fighters. You always have to go out of your immediate reach. And so that's kind of how I fit in. Like I like to think I'm a pretty Switzerland type of promoter. Like I don't have beef with anyone. Nobody should have beef with me. And and the same with the fighters as well. You got to not only working with promoters, but you have to stay sweet with the fighters and look after them as best as you possibly can. Like at the end of the day, you're also trying to run a business as well, so it's a bit of a balancing act there. But you got your select few that you really want to I get behind, and that I'm willing to invest into developing their careers. And and that's all you can really do. That's all I can really do at the moment, anyway, until that that TV network opportunity comes along. And I think another thing that I've learned as a promoter so far, like it's the question, like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, like TV or the talent. And one thing I've definitely learned, it's number one, you have to have the talent first. Um, the talent will, the talent that's going to attract the genuine interest from a network partner that wants to also get behind that particular fighter or pool of fighters to potentially build into pay-per-view talent. That's how it
Well,
works.
yeah. So with the whole thing, just for everyone that's either watching live or maybe later or listening on Spotify after the event, tell us about how hard it is, because you get a lot of the fans or out there that why doesn't he fight him and why doesn't he fight him and why don't they work together and do that? Just explain without obviously putting anyone into it how complex it is sometimes in getting quality fights, quality talent together, and more importantly, working with other promoters that have other fighters that you want to match all guys with.
So it's obviously difficult. It can happen for a number of reasons. Probably the most common reason is one of the two fighters is scared to fight the other because they think that the other fighter is going to beat them. That's just the obvious fact. But then sometimes it can come from an agenda of the promoter or manager looking after a particular side of the fighter. They might have an alliance with, they might have an agenda where they want their fighter to feature on their events or their network, and that other fighter is featured on a different promoter's network, different promoters' events and their network. So that can sometimes conflict. And the poor people that and those two fighters, they might be open and willing and want to fight each other, and one might have a title that the other wants, but quite sometimes the promoters or the manager's agenda can sneak in and hinder that, which is why as a promoter, that's probably my biggest frustration. Like I actually had a conversation with someone the other day who mentioned to me that they're about to sign on a manager and was, am I willing to work with them or have conversations with them? I'm like, no worries at all. I've had no issues at all dealing with the manager. Sometimes it's a lot easier for a promoter to go via a manager, as long as that promoter is not trying to manipulate or maneuver you to eventually become his promoter at some point.
Yeah.
Because when you're a promoter and a manager, you're wearing two different caps, and you're not operating based off the fighters. The fighter is your priority, and that's why in America it's illegal to wear both hats. It's called the Muhammad Ali Act.
Yep.
A promoter and a manager are not allowed to be the same thing.
No, it definitely makes sense.
I agree with that legislation as well.
Do you think in this day and age, and look, it might be the same overseas, but especially here in Australia, that sometimes getting the fighters together, this whole emphasis on the records is far too much? I mean, it's all about the O, and it's almost like every fighter wants to be on a trajectory to a world title, but they just will not fight other fighters in the same situation, and that's one of the reasons why we don't get those big Aussie fights that maybe we should.
Yeah, it is frustrating. It's difficult for me to say because, like, when I was a fighter as well, I probably, was a bit sensitive about keeping my O intact as well. I was able to do it for 24 fights straight though. So,
but yours is strategic though, because you're on the path, and it's all about ranking. What I'm talking about is the 5-0 or 6-0 guy who won't fight another guy that's 5-0 and 6-0 because they've got this thing in their head that they're on this path to a world title, and as a result, they just don't test themselves.
Yeah, so it's definitely frustrating for me as a promoter trying to convince two undefeated fighters to fight each other, but you just got to make the juice worth the squeeze. For example, key example is this next event, my main event, two undefeated fighters fighting for the IBO light heavyweight youth world title. So I've dangled the carrot with, which is the IBO Youth World title, and they're like, okay, it's worth it. They're getting paid decent money as well. So if you're willing to invest into them risking their O's, then it's easier than not doing it. But yeah, it is frustrating when undefeated records or not, when like fighters in general like refuse to fight tough fights. It's so counterproductive they don't even realize, because fighting a tough fight is actually beneficial for your career. If you want to keep going, you need to have those tough fights, go taste a little bit of adversity to improve and get better and develop, so that you're incrementally stepping it up each time you fight, so that you're eventually, when you find yourself in the deep waters and against good opposition, that you know how to swim, you know how to get out of there and get through those fights.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. All right, a couple of quick fire things that you want your opinion on. Tim Zoo and the Fundora situation. What should have happened or how did you see what happened in the fight with the cut, and what should have happened or what didn't happen?
So I've got two opinions. I'll give you like my instant opinion. Like when I was watching, so the opinion that I had when I was watching the fight has now changed since, like, after everything surfaced, and I've looked at it from a different perspective post event. So during the fight, what should have happened is their corner should have like just been like pushing that, mate, the bloke can't see, he's fucking blind, he literally can't see, you can't send him out to fight, you need to stop the fight. And then they would have stopped it. Tim Zoo obviously would have been a no contest, and Tim Zoo would have retained his title. I think that would have been, potentially been like a better outcome, because he still would be world champion. But having said that, he still went on and showed like his fighting spirit. He's like, his courageous, valiant effort to continue to fight and try and win, which, still won him a shitload of fans and a lot of respect. But probably in that process took a bit of damage. Not necessarily just from that cut, but like all the other shots that he took throughout the fight, that might have a bit of a longer lasting effect on him. Who knows? But he still like was, it was. But at the end of the day, fucking unlucky, just so unlucky. Because if he hadn't have had hadn't ran into that random elbow,
Probably
he would
fighting
have.
Crawford in August.
He probably would have knocked him out, and he probably would have been in line for one of the biggest, events in boxing in recent times. But I'm sure, I very, very highly rate Tim Zoo, and I'm sure he'll bounce back. But yeah, one of my assessments was, and this is not having a crack at his corner, but it's more of a compliment to Tim Zoo around, like, he's done it so easy his whole career that his trainers have also never had to really face adversity. So it was almost like they were taken. It almost seemed like they were a bit like, oh fuck, what do we do? Like, Tim Zoo's is in trouble. He's never been in trouble before in his
He's
career.
cut. The Russians cut. It was a bit like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was almost like they had to scramble a bit there, but end of the day, everyone will learn from it, and I'm sure he'll be back featuring in mega fights very soon.
Yeah, no, sure. Jai Pataya, ready for a step up to heavyweight, or the last 3 rounds in the Breeders' fight maybe just put a little bit of doubt in the mind?
I think, there's not really much for him left at cruiserweight unless Usyk comes back down, is there? There's no like super standout mega fights. So, but then did I hear or read somewhere that Usyk might be moving to cruiserweight?
Well, he's talk about it, but I think he's just sort of keeping the reporters on their toes, I think, because there's no money fights there for him, is there? They're all at heavyweight, so.
Unless. Well, who is there at heavyweight? Who's the money fight at heavyweight?
Well, obviously there's the Fury rematch. That's probably the first one. So, and then maybe he retires, or maybe I don't think he'd want to fight Joshua again. So maybe he's hoping. Well, even if Dubois beats Joshua, beat him as well.
Who are the other big heavyweights out there at the moment? Big names.
Well, it's really just Fury, isn't it? Maybe would he get up for a Parker? Probably not. Zhang, probably. Who knows?
Yeah. So I think like Parker and Zhang.
It's about
there's probably the same type. it's the same type of value coming back down to cruiserweight and fighting Jai,
Yeah.
kind of maybe.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but no, he's obviously killing it. He's yeah, I remember when I used to train with him back in the day, back out in Western Sydney. He came around. He came on a training camp with me once up to Wyong, I think it was.
Yep.
We did like a 3-day training camp up in the bush before I fought someone, and he was tagging along. We used to have the same strength and conditioning trainer, Hayden Knowles.
Yep.
Yeah, back when he was like 16, 17 years
Gonna
old.
say it would have been young, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but he was always a freak of a talent. Like I remember in that training camp, he used to spar with Brad Pitt, who at that point might have been like 10-0 as a pro, maybe more. He used to give Pity some tough rounds back in the day.
Mm.
Um, yeah, no, he's very, very good talent. Who else have we got at the moment?
A couple more. George Kambosos, can he get back to the level at lightweight, or is his days done at that level?
So who are the other ones?
Well, at lightweight.
What's going to be a struggle for him? It's not necessarily can he um, compete and win at that level. It's is he going to get the opportunity to compete and win at that level again?
Yeah.
Um, like who are the likely opposition choices?
Well, who are the top dogs at lightweight? Davis.
They'd have to be under the. So I don't think you get a shot at Davis.
Mm,
I think the smart thing to do for him
Stevenson,
would
maybe.
no, the smart thing to do with him for him would to move up to light welterweight and harass fucking Teofimo Lopez for the rematch
Yeah.
and make a squillion, and then if you
Retire.
can try and get in his head again and beat him, um, or yeah. But if he doesn't,
Mm,
sail off into the sunset with for 10-20 million dollar. I don't know, a big ass payday.
yeah, it would be. And one last thing, mate. Liam Paro this weekend. Can he beat Sabriel Mateus to win the world title?
He's got a very good he's got a chance. You definitely cannot rule him out. Matthias is like yeah, he's a very obviously very strong raw puncher. Pretty like crafty as well. Tiny bit unconventional maybe. Yeah, like
Mm.
who are we talking about again?
Paro.
Para.
Paro.
Liam Paro has definitely got the ability to land that strong southpaw left hand down the middle,
Yeah.
potentially walking onto some shots,
Mm.
and maybe get the win. So I'll be definitely watching and keen to see what the outcome is, and hopefully gets a win and can bring a world title back to Australia. Like how many champs do we got at the moment? We're
We've
running,
got
aren't
Jai
we?
and the girls. That's about it.
Yeah,
So, and we've
yeah.
had, I think, 11. This I think is our 11th world title fight this year. I think it is from either 10th or 11th. So it's been a big year for Aussie boxing. Only halfway through, we've had 10 or 11, whatever it is, fight for world titles. So just amazing so far.
Pretty good, but isn't it that
Yeah.
even though we are halfway through and we've that
Mm.
many fighters fighting for the world title.
Mm. All good,
Um,
mate. All right, well, I'll let you go just again. So June 29th, the Pullman Hotel. So the website again for the tickets.
yep. So www.wildfighter.com.au
Nice and
forward
easy.
slash events.
Yep.
Tickets are available now. All the corporate tables are sold out, but there's still general admission standing and seating to get, and the live stream link will go up. Probably a week out from the fight, so that's
Okay.
also available via that link.
All good.
Yeah,
All
so
right, mate. Well,
it's going to be a good night, and I hope everyone shows up and we can put on a
support
good show
Aussie
for you.
boxing. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. So
yeah.
it's a way we get these prospects up and going by getting to the local fight. So get along. So, mate, doing great things with Wildfighter. I hope it continues, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, cheers, Lyndon. Catch you
Thanks,
soon,
mate.
mate.
Talk to you later. Bye. All right. That was Will Tomlinson, former IBO featherweight, I think it was, or 130 pound, whatever it was, former IBO world champion Will Tomlinson. So good to have him on, and it's a tough game, the promotion industry. So good on him for having a crack, and let's hope he gets an opportunity with one of the TV networks soon or the streaming services, because he really does his best to put on really good Aussie 50-50 fights. So get behind Will and all the other promoters out there that are doing great things. All right, now I'm going to try and get through all the comments really quickly, guys. That was about 25 minutes of not being able to comment on any of your things in the chat there. So we'll go through it quickly. Kyle Champion, this is about the Alex Winwood fight. Was cancelled, okay, due to an injury to a fighter on the main event for Stan. So the entire event is off. That's a bit rough, isn't it? That just because one fighter's injured, they pull the card. That's a bit tough. Carl says, if Jalen Tate boxes smart, he wins. I think Jalen is one of the best prospects in Australia today. Yeah, he had a bit of a shaky one last time out, Carl, but this is why you have those tough fights earlier on in your career, so you learn and get the experience so that when you do get a crack at one of the big fights, whether it be for a world title or eliminator, that you're ready. So I think it'll hold him in good stead. But as I said, don't underestimate Ibi Bella. Very, very good fighter, hence why he was an Olympian, and I think that will be a ripper. There is Team Batman. How you going, mate? Welcome to the show. Kyle says, has Jai Patai's contract with Matchroom been satisfied and now he's a free agent, or just with Tasman? It's in conjunction with Tasman, Kyle. No, he's still with Matchroom, as is Justice Honey as well. But Tasman are his managers, if that makes sense. Tasman fighters, promoters, he's technically his manager, but Matchroom are the main, obviously his main promoter, but they work in conjunction with each other. As far as, I think even if it was satisfied, Kyle, why wouldn't Matchroom sign Jai up? He's one of the hottest prospects. Not prospect, he's a world champion, one of the hottest fighters in the world at the moment. The Saudis seem to like him, so it just makes sense that he re-signs with Matchroom if it has in fact expired, but I don't think it has. There's Bill. What's that? Lynden, I loved traveling. Hang on, have I missed something there? Sorry, I'll come back to that one. Cole says, has Wildfighter had any talks? Sorry, mate, I didn't even look at the comments as I was talking to Will. I would have brought it up. Have they had any talks with Channel 7, or is there interest in becoming a part of the Premier Boxing Series? Yeah, well, I must admit, Kyle, and Will probably won't comment on this, but I was really surprised that the Premier Boxing Series, when they came to Melbourne, or when Ace Boxing decided that, or Angelo DiCarlo decided he was going to step back and they were going to divide up the dates for the year, I was very surprised that it went to Team Alice instead of Wildfighter. Team Alice have more been predominantly with the novelty events, the footy players and the reality stars and all that sort of stuff, which is a good business model. They're obviously doing well out of it, and that's great. So they hadn't really put any proper fight nights featuring just boxers. So I must admit I was a little bit surprised that it didn't go to Wildfighter, but I'm sure there's a reason for it. Maybe that's what Channel 7 and 7 Plus want, are those reality TV fights and the footy players fighting each other. Who knows? But the card is good. I think, who was it? Lucas Miller and Matt Sheen will be a really, really good fight. And who was the other one? Mitch Leake against Jack Brubaker will be a good fight as well. So, and really on the undercard, they probably only have, 2 other fights on the card, so it doesn't really matter. But by all account, looks like it's going to be a good one. But as I said, Will probably won't comment on it, but I know he keeps in good with all the promoters because you just never know. You just never know. Maybe No Limit wants to farm out some of their dates. Maybe there's another streaming app wants to get involved. So I think it's just keeping on putting on quality events, and then the chance will come. So, and he does 3-4 shows a year, so he's quite active. So let's hope he gets a chance down the track. G'day, Glenn. How are you, mate? I did say I was going to go through these pretty quickly, and I haven't done that, have I? I'll keep going through the comments there. There's Andy in the chat. How you going there, mate? Welcome to the show. Yes, Andy, that was Wild Will Tomlinson, the former IBO world champion. Actually was signed with Golden Boy at one stage, fought on the Canelo undercard, and I think he got stopped by a cut from memory. But he was very entertaining back in his day, was Will Tomlinson. If you haven't seen him, make sure you check him out on YouTube. All right, Bill. Love following Tassie fighters over Australia. Sorry, that's what you were saying. 150 a ticket was possible, but now 250 plus table seat and $100 general is mental. even if possibly affordable. It's just not reasonable at domestic level. I hear you, Bill, and look, it's as a former promoter myself, I know exactly where you're coming from, mate. I know the last thing we want to do is charge $100 for a general ticket. The problem is, though, in Australia, though, Bill, it's a really, again, I won't try not to dwell too much on this because I'm way behind in the comments, but the problem is the old, what is it, the chicken before the egg sort of scenario, I suppose. Promoters don't want to charge that amount of money for the cards, but the problem is, if you want to put on just a half decent card on a lower level, like that gets maybe 1,000 people there, if you're lucky, by the way, it's pretty hard getting that these days. You want quality fights on the card. You might spend between $100,000 and $150,000 on that card. So you do your sums. You've got to get that money from somewhere, and obviously try and make a profit. A lot of promoters do this as a living. So if it costs $150,000 to put on a quality event, and you've got 1,000 people coming, there's $150 on average you've got to charge. And the catered tables, I was not a fan. I hated the catered tables, but unfortunately, that most likely will get you an extra $100 per person in your pocket. So if you sell 25 tables, so at 250, an extra $100 per person, was that 25 grand? That might be the difference between making money and losing money. So I understand, Bill. I totally get it, especially with the cost of living these days, but it just comes down to the fans out there, I think, want to go and support these fights, but like you, aren't prepared to pay it. And I understand that. But then you've got the actual promoters who are trying to actually put on good events, and it costs money, and they just can't get 2,000 or 3,000 people there so they can lower their prices. Maybe the other thing is to charge less and get more people there. I don't think that would necessarily solve the problem, but it's a real problem in Australian boxing, Bill. And look, the big promoters like No Limit, Tasman Fighters, they will get money, especially No Limit. They will get good money off the networks. This is probably why I've been so critical of No Limit with the quality they're putting on compared to some of the other promoters like Will have put on really good events with nowhere near the funding, because they actually get a really good amount of money that probably could almost cover the entire card before they even start. So having said that, getting that amount of money, I would expect them to put on the best cards possible. So, but it's a real problem in this country, Bill. And I'm assuming it's all over the world as well. But it's that whole thing about, the promoters needing that amount of money or generate that amount of money to put good shows on. But the fans out there are saying, well, I'm not going to spend that type of money. So it's a problem, mate. But totally get where you're coming from. Andy, probably didn't remember me, but we used to train at the same gym in Darwin at the Italian club. I was the tallest chap there, okay? Again, sorry, Andy, and whoever else has commented on Will. I didn't look at the comments as we were going. But again, if you haven't seen Wild Will Tomlinson, they called him Wild Will for a reason. He was a little buzzsaw, so check it out. He used to fight a lot on Danny Green undercards as well, so I'm sure most of you people, or guys and girls out there, have seen him. We'll keep going through the comments there. Zoo will definitely bounce back. Man's a savage. He will. I got no doubt he will, Batman. But again, and I wouldn't have a problem with it, if there's been a strategic, I'll try and spit that out, decision by Team Zoo to maybe not put him in with Ortiz now, just maybe pull him back. Maybe he's not quite mentally right. We know he's going to be physically right, but maybe he's just not quite, where he needs to be mentally. So maybe they've just said, look, let's just pull him out. Let's get him someone that might not be as dangerous as Ortiz and just ease him back. There's no rush. There's no world titles on the line. All the other elite 154-pounders are all sort of tied up amongst each other. So let's not rush into it and bring him back gradually instead of into a big fight like the Ortiz fight. So I haven't got a problem with it. Whatever the reason was, let's just assume it was the cut as was announced. Then that's fine. I haven't got a problem with him being pulled out and fighting someone just a little bit more maybe suitable after coming off such a bad cut. Vegas has a way of screwing Aussies over. Well, they do, mate. Of course, the biggest one of all was Jeff Fennick back in the day, wasn't it, against Azuma Nelson? The draw that was. I still cannot believe that they did not give that to him. It was just crazy. He'll be back with a new cut man, I'd imagine. No, well, that's the thing, Carl. From what I've sort of heard is Tim was actually okay with the whole thing and supported the cut man. And look, my issue is if it even is an issue, but my view on the whole thing, I don't necessarily think you can blame just the cut man. My issue would be, if I had to probably put it on anyone, is probably Igor, the trainer. When you think about it, let's just, again, we've been over this 100 times, and I'm not coming crashing down on Igor. I'm just saying the decision, he has the ultimate decision in the corner. He's the chief second. Okay, the cut man does his thing. Igor is the chief second. You've got all the other, does the stool and the water, all that sort of stuff. Everyone has a job, but Igor is the chief second. So what should have happened there, and maybe I'll tie the cut man into it as well, obviously, but he should have said, I can't stop the cut. Or Igor should have said, can you stop the cut? Then the cut man, I would have assumed, said, shit, I don't think so. Then Igor should have made the decision to stop it then. Maybe the cut man did say, no, give me time. I can stop the cut. And Igor has given him the go-ahead to continue. Maybe if that is the case, what should have been said is, can you stop the cut? Yeah, no, I think I can do it. All right, I'm going to give you one more round or two more rounds, and then it is over, okay? And just have something. But the fact it went for 12 rounds. Anyway, look, it's easy from this side of the fence. That's all I'll say. And as I said, Tim and Glenn and everyone else seems to be happy with the cut man, so we'll cut him a bit of a break. Bill Smith and Regpaw. Jai gets the winner. Yeah, that'll be a good fight. Smith and Regpaw, when they do fight. So I think Jai cleans out the division, Carl. I don't think that's for me, I don't think it's even a question, to be honest. Yep, this weekend, I think it was, Carl. I'm sure you've answered in the chat there. Annie says, I never fought, just trained under a good mate, Johnny McLean. Johnny had two famous brothers. One was Michael McLean that played AFL for Brisbane. Yeah, he did. I remember him, Andy. And Rodney McLean, that was Australian middleweight champ. Yep, salute again to Wild Will. Carl says, yeah, he fought Jeff Fennick in the early 80s from Townsville. I didn't know that, Carl. So I'll keep rushing through the comments there. Yeah, so if Jalen cuts the Roy Jones Act out of his game, he's the good. Yeah, look, I think one thing to come out of it, Carl, was that in that last fight, just stick to what you know. Don't get ahead of yourself. He was very lucky to get through that fight, wasn't he? Who was it against? Alexander Espinoza. It was back in March. So look, as I said, Carl, you've just got to have these fights where you learn your trade, learn your craft, have experiences where you get hurt, you might get dropped, you might get cut, you might be showboating and give away rounds. It's all just a learning curve, but as long as you're not throwing the fights away, that's probably the main thing. And then, you know, when you get your chance, you're equipped and ready to go. Too many Aussie fighters, I'm sure it happens all over the world, where they'll win a regional title, whether it be WBA, WB. Actually, WBC haven't really got that many regional titles apart from the Australasian, I think it is. But the WBA, IBF, WBA, they all have multiple titles that you can win. And once you win one of those regional titles, you're ranked in the top 15 in the world. So you can have some pretty inexperienced, average type of fighters who just have to get the right opponent, and they can come from Thailand or the Philippines or Fiji or New Zealand. All you got to do is beat one of those guys and automatically you win the belt and you'll get a top 15 ranking. All it then takes is the world champion. You go, yeah, I think I'm going to have a voluntary defense. Yeah, he'll do. He's ranked number 14 or 15. And all of a sudden you got a world title fight, and it's a fighter that should not be in there, but does get the opportunity. And we've seen it along the line that some of the guys and maybe girls have been sliced and diced pretty badly on the world stage, and that's why. And that's probably why we need a little bit better system in place where you're just not getting an automatic top 15 ranking with the regional title. But I'm with you there, Carl. He probably just needs to get back to basics and concentrate on the job at hand, because these opponents, they're not just the also-rans anymore. When you get to the level, he's got to start focusing on the job. And if he does, I'm sure that he'll be fine. Peter Nutt, how you going there, Peter? Are you getting nervous about the Pies? I see they had a good win today. They carved up Melbourne, didn't they? Well, look at the Blue Boys last night. Last week we beat Port Adelaide, who were third. This week we beat Essendon, who were second. I'm looking forward to getting another crack at you guys, Peter. Now, actually, Peter, I haven't had a real good chance to watch a lot of the Jumper Punch lately, but I just happened to watch the day after last week, and you were in there causing a bit of kerfuffle, Peter. upsetting a few of the Carlton boys and girls in the chat. So look, I couldn't help laughing. I think it's you got a few balls going into the chat of an opposition club's live stream or whatever it was, and causing some dramas. But yeah, it was pretty funny. But yeah, I'm not getting nervous about the Pies just yet, mate. I can't wait to play these again, because I think, like last year, we've got your measure. So anyway, we'll see. But good to see the Pies. Let's see, Carlton, Collingwood, Essendon, all in the top 8. So you got to love that. I'll keep going there. Yeah, Carl, he was an entertainer. That is Will. That's for sure he was. Here we go, Peter. Now, I've got to take a deep breath here, because I don't want to get too excited on my soapbox. What about Dan Andrews being rewarded for being Australia's biggest stud? Now, if you didn't know, Dan Andrews, the longest serving and worst, in my opinion, Premier this state has ever had. This is the state of Victoria I'm talking about, has been awarded with a King's Birthday honours list, or whatever the hell it is. As was it Terry Wallace said in the when he used to coach the Western Bulldogs about spewing up? That's how I almost was, Peter. Can you believe this guy? What have you got? Is that a rat you got there? I'd probably agree with that. Has got a gong for the King's Birthday honours list is beyond me, Peter. He the most locked down city in the world, like billions and billions and billions of dollars in debt. The biggest blowout in works here in Victoria of all time. Just an absolute piece of shit, if you ask me, as a human being. Got away with the hit and run thing with his missus in the car and all the rest of it. Yeah, not a very good human being, Peter. And that's what you get. You get a statue, and you get a King's Birthday mention on the honours list, or whatever the hell it is. It's not the Order of Australia, whatever it is, but whatever it is. All he deserved, Peter, was a one-way ticket out of Australia, because I would never want to see the piece of shit ever again. But anyway, on to the boxing. We're talking boxing tonight, of course, not politics. But yeah, I did see that, Peter. Hashtag piece of shit. All right. All right. You guys talking amongst yourselves there. All right, Kyle, I love this free no limit card that they're having in July. Looking forward to seeing Vegas Larfield bounce back, and Shay Kennelly, is it? Fighting for the WBA World Light Heavyweight title. Looks good. Yes, I did see that, Kyle. And look, and that is, was it Nathaniel May on that card? And I did actually look up his opponent. It actually didn't look too bad. I haven't got the box rec in front of me, but yeah, no, it looks a really good card, Kyle. And this is what we expect with, as I said before, the money they're getting and the funding and everything like that, and the resources they have. There should be no reason why they can't consistently put on cards like this for the free cards. So let's hope that they've learnt of those earlier cards in the start of the year, because they weren't much chop. But that card, yeah, Kyle, I agree, looks very, very good. So credit to the No Limit guys who have looked like they're back on track. And Vegas Larfield, I am with you there, Kyle. Really looking forward to seeing him back in action as well. Maybe it's time for Tim to beat Liam Smith. Decent return. Maybe that's the Wembley card. Yeah, you never know, Batman. It probably makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? That's September, though. Yeah, that would probably make sense, September. So what's that, about 3 months away? Now, if he's going to fight at the start of August, is a month later going to be not quite enough? Maybe October? Maybe they do it in Saudi. Liam Smith, of course, there was talk that he was going to fight Zarafa. Was Zarafa mentioned it? Actually, I'm not sure whether everyone saw it on the weekly roundup last week, but Michael Zarafa, from what I've heard, has been released from his WBC, his PBC contract. So I don't think anything's been made public so far, but I did have it on very good authority that he has been let go from PBC, who won't require him for the second fight on his 2-fight deal. So that remains to be seen. But yeah, that does make a little bit of sense there, Batman. And look, I'm not so sure it'll be September with Liam Smith, but maybe Tim coming back on the October card in Saudi. That would be better Beav and Bivol. Does make sense, doesn't it? So I suppose it'll all be announced very, very soon. Murtazaliev might as well be Tim's tune-up for the IBF title. Yeah, is he? Yeah, I think he's a little bit more than a tune-up, Kyle, because obviously he's the champion. But yeah, I think, look, he seems to be the forgotten man, doesn't he, Murta Zaliov? And if the other fights are off the table, he seems to be the only top ranking or elite 154 pounder or any 154 pounder that matters in the scheme of things at the moment. So does maybe make sense to pursue him maybe later in the year. Because once you've got a belt, everything changes. At the moment, he's been frozen out a little bit, Tim. But if he gets that IBF belt, just like they're probably planning on the WBA interim belt, all of a sudden you're back in the mix, back in the game. So does make sense, Kyle. We'll see what happens there. Batman, yep, I felt they let Zoo down on the night. Look, I just think Will made a really good point there about the fact that everything had been such smooth sailing in Tim's fights so far. He hadn't really been, I know he'd been put down by Gaucher, but apart from that, it was a flash knockdown. There wasn't really any alarm in that. He hadn't really been rocked or hurt or cut, especially like that, of course. So I've just got a feeling that on the night, it just all happened. And you got to remember the cut man. The cut happened right on the bell. Literally, the sound of the bell going was the sound of Fundora's elbow cracking Tim in the head. So he would have been on his way up into the ring, not prepared for a cut of that magnitude or any cut for that matter. So I'm not sure they let him down. I think the only way they let him down was by just not pulling him out. Maybe, like Will said, they had so much faith in Tim. He'd won those first 2 rounds so easily, but I think it's going to be a massive learning curve for the Batman. Let's hope it never happens again. But maybe whether it's Tim or anyone else that's watching that fight says, okay, if that ever happens in a fight that I'm in or one of my fighters is in, I never let them fight on. I stop it on the spot because that's what can happen. And look what the repercussions of it. Instead of being in the mix, if he hadn't if the fight had been stopped after 2 or 3 rounds or 4 rounds, whatever it might have been, he would have had his belts. Yeah, they probably would have held him out until the end of the year, but at least he would have been still the man. Everyone wanted to fight him for the belts or unify or come up to fight him, whatever it might be. He still would have been the main focus of that division. But by losing those belts, he's just becomes the forgotten man. Which is why I don't mind the fact they've pulled him out and said, yeah, you know what, let these other guys fight amongst themselves and settle their business. We'll just take an extended break so that when the little mini tournament is worked out, we'll be ready to go. We'll get a tune-up or 2 in the meantime, and then away we go for maybe later in the year or early next year. But arguably I let him down, Batman, but I just think they got caught with their pants down and weren't quite prepared weren't prepared on what to do in that situation going forward in the fight. So again, I'm sure they'll learn a valuable lesson going forward. Faced some adversity and came out on top. This is Jalen Tate. Would have learned heaps from that. Certainly would have Jalen. Let's hope so anyway. But again, he's got a good test in front of him. I think Tim's his own worst enemy at times. Perhaps he said, don't stop the fight, Uncle Igor. Yeah, well, that's another thing as well. And if that is the case, look, in that situation though, Carl, the fighter, this is the reason why the fighter employs his team or his team in the corner. And I know it's a little bit complicated because it's his uncle in there. But, of course, the fighter's always going to want to continue. But I just think, again, Igor being the chief second should have said, Tim, I don't care what you think. We admire you for it. I'm stopping the fight. And just stop the fight. Don't even maybe consult Tim. The only thing I probably would have consulted Tim about, Tim, can you see? And even if he said yes, Tim, don't lie to me. You cannot see. So I'm going to stop the fight. And again, with the cut man situation, at least if he had to give him the 3rd and 4th rounds to try and stop it, I think it was blatantly obvious after the 4th round he wasn't going to stop the fight. So stop it then. And let's go to the scorecard for a draw or a no contest, whatever it might be, but stop the fight. But again, I'm sure they've learnt from it or will learn, and it never happens again. This is Will. Definitely showed he had the talent to go places way back at that little gym in Darwin. If my memory serves me correctly, Will went back to Melbourne because there wasn't much fight activity in Darwin. No, there wasn't. Well, he's got to remember he's from Bairnsdale, I think, Will. And in Darwin, there was not much of a... I know there's a lot of sort of gyms up that way, but not really elite gyms with elite fighters. So obviously going back to Melbourne, maybe he could have went to Sydney. That's where it was all happening. But it worked out for him anyway, didn't it? Yeah, Jalen also another great talent coming out of Townsville. Yep, it's a great boxing state. It's also a great rugby league state, isn't it, Carl? I'm surprised no one's brought that up so far. They, of course, beat the... What are the New South Wales team? Are they they're the Cockroaches, aren't they? Nice nickname, the Cockroaches. Not sure I'd want to be called a cockroach, but anyway. I'm definitely, what's that there? I definitely see that being the case at Warrior mentality. Plus, I think Tim and the team still believe they would get Fundora out. But there would have come a time, though, Batman, that surely, as dominant as he was in those first 2 rounds, that surely they could see that he was hindered. Look, no matter, for me, just me speaking, no matter how we break it down, the fight should have been stopped. No matter how well he went in those first 2 rounds, no matter how dominant that he was, no matter how they thought he might have been able to handle it, underlining the word thought, they didn't know. If you've got a fighter like that with blood, with a cut like that, just stop the fight. And the more... Yeah, I'm sympathetic to everyone, but the more I've sort of thought about it in the last couple of months is, why didn't you stop the fight? Anyway, we've dwelled on it enough. I can't believe that 2 months later we're still talking about it. Andy says he agrees. Cooler heads should have prevailed and Team Zoo should have exited and scheduled a rematch. But here we are, in hindsight, it doesn't rewind what played out. Shake my head. I don't think a rematch would have been scheduled, Andy. I think if the fight had been stopped, I think Tim just would have moved on. I think he would have had the extended break and then tried to maybe organise a Crawford fight, or I'm not sure what Charlo's doing or whatever it might have been, but I don't think he would... Well, maybe it would have been him fighting Spence. Maybe that would have been the fight, but I don't think he would have done the rematch with Fundora, because you've got to remember, Fundora was a late replacement after Thurman pulled out. So it would have been tough luck. Sebastian, you got your chance. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for you, so we're going to move on, and you're going to have to fight your way back into a rematch. I think the way it panned out, 100% Fundora should give Tim a rematch, but it had been the other way around, because the circumstances with Fundora beating Tim, this would have been the honourable thing to do, because of the cut and extenuating circumstances. But on the other hand, again, Fundora was a late replacement. It would have been stiff shit. Work your way back, and then I'll give you a rematch. But we'll never know, will we? Batman says he thinks that Tim beats Fundora in a rematch. Yeah, I think so. Let's just hope he gets an opportunity. I've got a feeling that Spence might beat Fundora. We don't know what Spence is going to turn up, by the way, but I think he's a 100% chance of beating Fundora. And if that's the case, maybe all of a sudden, it would probably be Spence Crawford 2 in that situation, wouldn't it? Let's hope not, because that means then Tim gets sort of frozen out from that. But then it also maybe throws up the possibility of Tim Fundora 2. So, and yeah, Dan Andrew, not popular. Not at all, Andy. If you just look at him, he's just that type of guy you just want to... Not a nice person, Andy. He's a liar and a shyster. Whatever you want to... Is that a word still? Shyster? He's just a liar. That's all he is. And he'll do whatever he can, or what he has to get what he wants, and doesn't tell the truth, which obviously makes him a liar, but not very transparent at all. And they're trying to hide all the evidence of when he was in power, all the COVID stuff. So anyway, he's had enough airtime tonight. Peter Nutt says Zoo will stop Fundora inside 5 rounds in the rematch. Well, again, let's hope we get that chance to see that, Peter. Batman wants Tim to fight in the UK come hell or high water. He's doing whatever he can, isn't he, Carl? He wants Tim to fight over there. It'd be great to see him in England, but I think if anything, I've got a feeling he might fight in Saudi Arabia in probably, I'm thinking October. I just think it has a bit more of a ring to it rather than September. It's only, again, a month after he was supposed to fight on the LA card. So I think they'll say, well, let's just wait till October, give him an extra 2 months. I think that, or 8 weeks, I think that probably makes a lot more sense. But I'm hearing you, Batman. I would want to go see him as well if I was you. I've seen him a few times here in Australia, and yeah, he's great to watch live. Peter says Zoo would destroy Smith by KO. I agree, Peter. All right, Batman, he was snapping Fundora's head back at will before the cut. Yep. Yeah, look, I'm not going to say it was 100% given he would have stopped him. It's only the second round. We've seen lots of fights where one fighter's been super dominant in the first 2 or 3 rounds and the fight sort of turned as it's gone on. But I think, I just think the way how sharp and that Tim looked in those first 2 rounds, and we all know what Tim's capable of going forward in the fight. He doesn't let up. He gets better as the fight goes on. Just not sure if Fundora would have been able to take his punches, but yeah, it's a tough one for Aussie boxing, Batman. Let's hope again he gets an opportunity to right the wrong. Is that Andre Rodriguez? How are you, Andre? Good morning for us, few, and good late afternoon for everyone else. Yeah, it's about 8:05 in the evening here, Andre. So I'm not quite sure how, what time it is where you are, but was it in the morning over there? Carl, PBC is laughable. We're into the 6th month of the year and only getting the second card underway. His Excellency Turkey El Dupe Damarquio is the man. Yeah, I think is it LL Sheik? I think that's how you pronounce it. Turkey LL Sheik. Yeah, he's what I like about it, Carl, about Turkey. Again, I'm not going to call him His Excellency because he's not my Excellency, but we'll call him Turkey, the Sheik, or whatever he is. What I like about him is that he's after these fights, he's getting in the ring and announcing what's going to happen next, like they do in the UFC. He's fighting him, and the winner's going to fight him. That's the way it should be, and that's what I love about what he's doing. He's saying if he beats him, he's going to get a crack at him. And then straight after they fight, he's in the ring announcing it, which is what they do in the UFC. So I think it's great. PBC are a joke. So was it March 30th was their first one, and again we're only into the second, so they might only do 3 or 4 for the year, which is not a great return for the big launch, is it? One way or another, it will happen. This is the England thing with Tim. Going to tag the Turk now in a tweet. Tag away, Batman. You never know. Ah, yes. Jesse Bam Rodriguez versus Estrada is the fight I'm looking forward to the most. Also good to see Bivol Beterbiev back on for October. Yeah. So that's on June 29th as well, I think, isn't it? The Bam Rodriguez Estrada fight, which is June 30th. Here in Australia. So, yeah, can't wait for that one, Carl. And Bivol Beterbiev. So that's October the 12th from memory. So, yeah, just what a year it's been for boxing. And the good thing about it is you just get the feeling that Turkey LL Sheik is just starting to warm up. You can see now he's got more frequent shows happening now. He's announcing 2 or 3 shows ahead now, which is great. What do we got? So we've got the August 3 card, we've got September 1, and we've got the October 1. No doubt there'll be a December 1 in before. Actually, that's the Usyk Fury fight. So there's 4 already lined up that I'm aware of, unless there's a 5th one. So they're just setting the pace, and you just get the feeling, as I said, that he's just getting warmed up. And next year, 2025, it just might be, hey, let's go. I'm really liking what we're doing here. Let's just do it every month and get massive fights on all the time. So let's hope this is just the start of things to come. Will Rocky Ogden bounce back, or will he get stopped again? Good question, Kyle. I think he'll bounce back. You got to remember, the fight I sort of think back to is Liam Wilson and who was the Filipino that he fought and got stopped badly. And he came over here. What was his name? He had 2 last names as well, didn't he? What was his name? Anyway, but he got stopped badly by him and then got him out of there in 3 rounds in the rematch. I've got a feeling this might be the case again. I think Rocky Ogden will bounce back against Cheng. Is it Cheng Cheng? Yep, Cheng Yang. So Rocky's 6-1, Cheng Yang 7-4. So I think that was a real surprise to all concerned. I think Rocky gets the job done this time, Kyle. Don't you know that Rocky always wins the rematch, Kyle? Carl, cockroaches suit them. Who come up with the name cockroaches, Carl? That's what I'd like to know. I mean, cane toads isn't much better. At least we're real imaginative down here in Victoria. We're just the big V. Or Mexicans, if you're from outside Victoria or from northern Victoria, we're just the Mexicans. But the big V is our name. So you got the cane toads, cockroaches, New South Wales. What is South Australia? Are the crow eaters? I think they are. Western Australians are the sand gropers. I'm not sure what Tassies are. We'll just call them the Devils, I suppose. But John Todd says Liam Wilson gets destroyed by Dib. It's a pretty good comment there, John. Look, I think Liam Wilson gets the job done over Dib, but I think the Dib fight with Balla sort of rings a little bit in my head because when I saw that fight, I know Dib would have seen that fight as very, very winnable, of course, because Libby had been out and only had a couple of easy fights after 4 years out. But I remember looking at that fight thinking, geez, Balla can fight. On his day, Balla can fight. So that's a danger fight for him, and it was proven because he ended up beating Dib. I see a little bit in this that maybe Liam Wilson sees Dib as the ideal opponent to get his first win at lightweight, maybe get George Kambosos' attention. But then Dib, on the other hand, will be licking his lips at an opportunity of redeeming himself from the Balla loss, but also upsetting Liam Wilson and putting himself back in it. So this has got upset written on it, John, but I'm going to stick with Liam Wilson to get the job done in what should be a really good fight. Still with John. My missus wants a talking boxing G-string made with your face on the front, and we need some of your beard to make it. Okay. All right, John. I won't answer that one, but that's pretty funny. Some of the beard hair. Okay. Jesus. All right, Andy. Cockroaches got smashed by the cane toads. Queenslander. Yes. Cesar Mateo versus Michael Zarafa. What do we think? I think Tapia wins that fight very, very clearly, Kyle. Not quite sure. I've just got a feeling, well, maybe Michael Zarafa's got to do what Liam Wilson's doing. Maybe he's got to swallow his pride a little bit. He's been on the world stage, fought for world titles, hasn't really been successful. He's got to swallow his pride and come back to Australia and fight a formidable Australian opponent. And Liam's obviously doing it with Dib, and maybe Zarafa's got to do it with Tapia. Get away from the whole, well, I'm Michael Zarafa, I fought for world titles in Las Vegas, I'm not going to come back and fight a Tapia. Ideal fight. Of course, the weight might be an issue because one's a super middleweight, one's a middleweight. But I wouldn't argue with that fight at all, Kyle. I think it's a good fight. It's whether or not Michael Zarafa's prepared to put it all on the line and take on Tapia in what would be a really big domestic fight. And, of course, Tapia's with no limit now, so it can happen. They've got to obviously be prepared to put their hand in the pocket for the money, and Zarafa's obviously got to be prepared. But now the PBC thing looks like it's over. Maybe he hasn't got a choice. Maybe he's got to sink or swim and just take the biggest fight out there, and maybe this is it. Peter, the Spence who fought Crawford isn't beating Fundora. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you, Peter. I just get the feeling in that fight, though, that Spence, he got rocked and dropped really early. Of course, we all go on about the weight. I think it was more so the fact that he got caught really unawares early. And when that happens in a fight of that magnitude, Crawford, just that shock knockdown, it can really put you off, can really unsettle you, can really start doubting yourself. So maybe it wasn't as bad as what we thought. I mean, Crawford was just so dominant, wasn't he? But maybe if he hadn't dropped him so early and he just had a chance to settle into the fight, maybe it would have been a little bit different. But I wasn't surprised with the result. Or maybe a little bit by how easy Crawford did it, but I thought he was always going to beat Spence. But I think if Spence turns up anywhere near his best, he can beat Fundora. But you're right. If it is the same Spence, the only thing with this one, Peter, I will say is I don't see Fundora dropping and hurting Spence early like Crawford did. Fundora's not a real big fighter, real big puncher, but he's a fighter that likes to stand in close, which I think will work in with Spence, who's got really, really good boxing skills. And if he doesn't have to really go looking for Fundora, and we know Fundora likes to sit in the pocket a lot and trade, which is ridiculous, it does give Spence a chance to win. And who knows what happens then. As I said, it could be Spence Crawford, Spence Zoo, who knows. Speaking of cockroaches, that suits Spence. All right, so you're not a Spence fan, I gather, Kyle. Peter, Zoo was never hurt by Fundora, and most of the power punches were landed by Tim. Yeah, well, all Fundora did, didn't he? All he did was keep his distance, and I don't know whether it was by design or by instructions from the corner. I'm assuming it would have been instructions from the corner. Just stand, he's got that long reach, the height difference as well. Stand away from Tim so he can't gauge you coming in. He has no really idea where you are, and just poke him or pick him off from long range. And that's what he did. I don't think Fundora fought that great a fight. I've said it before. But the thing is, he fought an effective fight simply by keeping Tim at a distance and not being there. Tim was almost going by touch and feel. So Fundora had stood in front of him while Tim still felt he was in his zone, in range, would have kept his hands nice and high to protect from any uppercuts or hooks that might come his way in close, and he just would have teed off. And I still think he would have got the job done over Fundora. But what Fundora did was take a step back. Tim had no chance of getting anywhere near him most of the time because of that substantial height and reach advantage, and he just fought a smart fight. But I didn't look at Fundora after that and go, wow, this kid's something special. I just thought he fought the fight that he needed to win the fight. And I think if they fight again and Tim's obviously not cut, I think it's a very, very easy night for Tim. Bam has been sparring Chocolatito at Robert Garcia's Boxing Academy. Apparently he's been pretty willing, Carl. So, sparring, of course. But, again, Chocolatito, he's been top of the tree for quite a long time. Excuse me. So, it'd be great sparring for Bam. But I just think Bam Rodriguez is such a great young talent. You can just see him, sort of moving up and winning, world titles at maybe 118 and 122 as well. So, hang on. Was he light? This is for the super flyweight, isn't it? Yeah, so he's flyweight. This will be super flyweight. Then maybe obviously Bantam and then super Bantam. But either way, it could see him winning, another couple of world titles for sure. I've got to bring it up, but I've got to say it's great that we ain't still talking about Garcia's test. Yeah, a lot of the channels I follow are still talking about that crap, but I'm so over it, that BS. Yeah, he's got himself in a bit of trouble over the weekend too, hasn't he, Andy? Ryan Garcia. He was locked up for doing some damage to a hotel room. I think it's pretty obvious he's got some issues, and maybe he needs a bit of a spell away from everyone. Maybe it's some what do they call it? Some just some rest and relaxation. So rehab, whatever you might want to call it, not for drugs or anything, just a spell away from everyone, and just maybe talk to some people who can help him get himself together. Because let's face it, he's got everything going for him. Young, he's good looking, he's got charisma, he's got money. It's got everything going for him. He can fight, obviously, but it means nothing if he hasn't got his stuff together outside the ring. So I'm just hoping, he just forgets all this, goes away, and what happens with the testing and the charges and all that sort of stuff. But get away and get his life back on track, because he's got so much to offer. What's that, Carl? Watch some of your fights on YouTube. You definitely had some serious skills. Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that, mate. There's a few up there. I uploaded some years ago. There's probably about half a dozen up there. I probably should put some more up. I've got them all somewhere, but I only put the ones I win though, Carl, and look good. I'm not going to put the ones up I lose. But I'll have a look, and I might see if I can upload a few more, mate. But I thank you. I appreciate that. Wilson absolutely stops Dib. I'm going to go by Wilson on points, Peter. I think Dib's a good enough fighter to hang with Liam over the journey, but I think Liam, unanimous decision for me. Jack Dilks. I did get called a crow eater for the first time out at Strathfield on Saturday. Now, Jack, of course, is Top Rank's official photographer, or understudy to Mikey Williams. Jack, of course, went over with us last year and has done a couple of gigs for Top Rank. Now over at Port Adelaide, working with the Power, who got their lights shut off last week by the Mighty Blues and exposed as the pretenders that they are. But that's what happens, Jack, if you're over there for X amount of time. What has it probably been? 6 months you've been over there? You're almost officially a crow eater, mate. So hope you're enjoying those two teams over there, who are both pretenders, if you ask me. So what do we got? Rowan Murdoch versus Zarafa. That would be, I think Murdoch would be a bit too big for Michael Zarafa, I reckon, Carl. Would be a really good fight. I would back Rowan Murdoch to win that fight, though, for sure. Do we see maybe Harbin Zarafa too? Is that the sort of fight he's got to go back to? Maybe not. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure where Michael goes from here. I think he's, as I said before, I think he's got to swallow his pride a little bit and just take an all Aussie big fight, whether it's Murdoch, whether it's Tapia, whether it's Kamakao, maybe it's Hardman again. I don't know, but maybe it's Nikita Zoo. Maybe Nikita could go up to middleweight. I'm sure he could carry the weight okay, but I think that's what Michael's got to do to get or to kickstart his career again. Because at the moment, if PBC have let him go, there's really not much else going for him. Because you would think that No Limit would say, well, if you're going to come to us, you're going to fight one of these guys. If you go to Tasman, same thing. Maybe it's got to be a Kamakao, one of those types of guys. So it's a tough time for Michael. But if he's going to get his career back on track, these are the fights he's going to have to take. Rachel Donaire is going to get Zarafa right for his next fight, Stubby says. Oh, gee. She did a great job last time, Stubby, didn't she? I'm not going to put Zarafa down because I've never been in the ring. Zarafa is finished as an international fighter, and there isn't much in Australia for him to fight. That would draw interest. Finish, yeah. Look, it's not putting Michael down, Peter. Look, sometimes facts are facts, and that's why I just said then. Like he's going to have to just fight one of these other top line Aussies, or else I'm just going to feel, well, what other big fights are going to come his way? They're just not. PBC don't want a bar of him. Top Rank, I don't think, would want a bar of him. Matchroom, I don't think, would want anything to do with him either. There's only one way for Michael. And look, the facts of the matter is that he got ironed out and starched in 2 rounds. What do they say in England? He got sparked out in 2 rounds, like it or not. So, and he might have fought at the top level all over the world. He might have beaten Jeff Horn and everything else. But the facts of the matter are right here and now, he's got no promoter. He's got no prospects or anything. He's 30 or 31 years of age. So my advice to Mike would be, hey, put the pride aside and the ego, and let's get a fight with Murdoch, Tapia, Hardman, Kamakao, or Nikita Zoo, and let's just do it. If I was him now, I would probably say, let's get the Nikita Zoo fight happening. Let's go. Okay, might be a year ahead of schedule. I'm sure Nikita's team would probably take it, to be honest. They would have seen what the Southpaw Lara did to Michael and would have thought, well, we could do that as well. But I just think he's got to take one of those fights. I wouldn't begrudge him if the Murdoch and Tapia fights he turned down because of the size difference. But whether it be Hardman, Kamakao, or especially Nikita, just take the fight, get a win, and then all of a sudden you're back. And I think you get a little bit more respect back from the Aussie public as well. He's had a pretty hard and torrid time from the Aussie fight fans over the last few years, and a lot of it's warranted, don't get me wrong, but this would be the way. I mean, imagine if he fought Nikita Zoo. It puts him right back on everyone's lips here in Australia, and if he beats Nikita, well, you just don't know what happens after that. So if I was going to fight any of them, I would be fighting Nikita, and as I said, it might be a year ahead of schedule, but I think Nikita's team would take it, and all of a sudden it's a big pay-per-view fight, and Michael's back. So I'm not quite sure who his manager is. I'm pretty sure it's still that Elvis Grant. I'm not quite sure, but either way, Elvis has got to get himself, if he is still the manager, has got to get himself a little bit more familiar with the Aussie scene and get him back in action here in Australia. What's that there? Sorry, Carl. Nonito had Michael prepared beautifully for that Lara fight. That guy just rubs me the wrong way. Just don't like the guy at all. Yeah. Back to Bam. He's moving like a monster, be it a little monster, but still a monster. For me, Junto beats Bam. I think at the weight, yeah, I would probably support you there, Batman. I think the size difference at that weight, whether it be, was it 118? I think at 118, I'll be putting my money on Junto too, Batman. Anything less, I'd be Bam, but I think at that weight, Junto's a big, strong, elite bantamweight. Look, I think Junto probably goes up at some stage and fights in a way, and I can't wait for that. That would be an unbelievable fight. Japan has 10 current world champs, more than the US. Is that right? I didn't know that, Carl. Yeah, okay, that's amazing. Just doing massive things over in Japan at the moment. All right, Bill. My opinion, Wilson beats every Aussie by shutout other than Kambosos. He beats Wilson every round, just levels and experience, but in time, Wilson may be as good, just not yet. Only an opinion. Yep, that's cool, Bill. I agree with that. Yeah, I think Wilson beats every other lightweight. I think he's got a chance against Kambosos, but I'd still probably just stick with George at the moment over Liam. But I would love to see that fight as well. I don't think it's going to happen though, Bill. I just think George is, I'm either at the elite world level or I'm not at any level. I don't think he'd want to come back and fight here in Australia. I understand why Liam has to. He's been there, been beaten twice and come back. I get it. He's got to recharge, reload, go again. But George, undisputed lightweight champion. It's a tough thing to come back to Australia, to your domestic scene, and try and go again. So he might come back to Australia and fight maybe another top 15 fighter, but I just don't think he would see Liam Wilson at his level. I suppose if that's the way you want to put it. So I'm not sure that fight happens. Junto, definitely a problem for anybody. Bam, no slouch too. So if it happened, should be lit. I agree, Andy, but again, I'm going to stick with Junto in that one. As good as Bam is, and I love him, I think Junto Nakatani would be a little bit too big and strong for Bam. Bam versus anyone is fire. Junto is no joke. Yep. I think I had him at 9 or 10 in my pound for pound list, Junto Nakatani. All right, Carl. Watch the Rocky movies. Yes, the montages are great, and the acting and writing still holds up to this day. Pity I can say the same for the Karate Kid crap movie over twice. Thank God for Cobra Kai. Hey, mate, I love Cobra Kai as well, and I understand where you're coming from, but the only thing I will say again on the Rocky movies, Kyle, and I said it on the live a couple of weeks ago on, was it, what fight? It might have been the Fury and Usyk card, whatever it was. No, it was the 5x5 card. The only thing I will say that I think holds up, Kyle, is that watch the Rocky movies and I'm probably talking for people my vintage, but do it. Watch the Rocky movies and you come out of there and you're pumped. You're just pumped. You know, you're on cloud 9, you're full of adrenaline, you want to take on the world and you're inspired and everything else. Walk out of the Creed movie, yeah, good movie. But to the fights and the montages, the fight montages and the training montages and the music and everything really make you walk out 6 feet tall and bulletproof? No, but the Rocky movies do. And that is probably my argument with an underline of why I think the Rocky movies to this day are just... And I've actually watched all 4 of them, or the first 4 over the last couple of weeks. And again, still brings back so many memories. And again, you get so pumped. But yeah, just do that, mate. But that's probably my whole argument. Watch the Rocky movies and tell me how you feel afterwards. And then watch the Creed movies and tell me what you think afterwards, how you feel. And it's like, yeah, okay, good movies, the Creed movies. But did it make me feel inspired and bulletproof? Nah. Rocky did. And how many fighters has Rocky inspired over the years, that started as young kids or whatever, who saw the Rocky movies and then wanted to become boxers? So a lot. And Lester Ellis is probably a great example of that. He'll tell you himself, he saw the Rocky movies and started boxing. World champion about 8 years later. There you go. Who's this? I think, Hardman. I think Isaac needs a bit of soul searching to do at the moment, to be honest. Yeah, no, I agree, Carl. But look, I followed him on social media, and I think he's back training, ready to go again. But yeah, I'll give credit to him. He realises that he's probably jumped a bit too deep and comes back and tries to improve and then goes again. Whether he can get to the ultimate level remains to be seen. I still see Isaac as that sort of fringe contender rather than being an actual contender, if that makes sense. And one of my favourite fighters, Isaac Hardman. But again, you've got to tell it the way it is. And as much as I love him, as much as I think he's a great fighter for Aussie boxing. Again, there's levels in the sport. I just got a feeling he's just not quite at the level. But let's hope he proves me wrong. Peter says, if Rafa wants a payday, beat Nikita, talk shit and get Tim to revenge the fight. Yeah, I don't think Tim and Rafa will ever fight, to be honest, Peter. But Nikita makes all the sense in the world, doesn't he? All right, John. Fighters who we're about to see are done. All right. Wilson, Hardman and Zarafa. Why? You only have one brain and can't take punishment to the extent for that long. I don't think Wilson's taken a hell of a lot of punishment, John. Even in the fights he's been stopped, he's taken physical punishment, but I don't think he's taken type of punishment that would make you have him worried about him in later years. Isaac Harbin, same thing. He's been stopped a couple of times, but hasn't really been sort of really brutalised any fight. Zarafa, the Lara fight was one of those shock early knockouts, a little bit similar to what Zarafa did to Hardman. They're not the type of knockouts that really give you long-lasting effects. It's the ones where you last to 9, 10, 11 rounds and you take a lot of punishment and then get knocked out. They're the ones that give you that long-lasting or the long-lasting problems. These guys, as I said, Wilson, even though he's been stopped a couple of times, I don't think he's really taken, some really hard or a lot of punishment to the head. And yeah, you are right in that example though, mate. You only have one brain, so you got to look after yourself. But I don't think those three guys are there just yet. Do these Japanese guys ever eat anything? They're all pretty lean, aren't they, Carl? There's not much of them, is there? Wilson doesn't fight smart enough to ever beat George Kambosos. Yeah, well, I agree with you, Peter. Yeah, no, and I think Liam and his trainer, Benny Harrington, will probably agree with that. He hasn't fought smart in some of his fights, which has resulted in losses. If he was stubborn in a fight with George Kambosos and dug his heels in and didn't listen to the corner, yeah, I think it would be a pretty easy night for George. But if he comes prepared and he looked pretty good in a few fights, Liam Wilson. I'm not quite sure they've been at the level, of course, of George Kambosos, the opponents, but I think on his night he gives George some problems. But I think George has got enough runs on the board that you'd have to back him. You would have to back him. But I'd still love to see the fight. I just don't think we will. Wilson has been damn unlucky. Props to the lad for taking the big fights. Yeah, I agree, Carl. He's taken on Navarrete. He's taken on who was it? Ortiz. So even he had that bad knockout. Was it Noi? Is that his name? Noi, whatever it was anyway. But he could have avoided him and gone around him, but he took him head on in the rematch and knocked him out in 3 rounds. So I'd like to see Golden Boy versus Top Rank 5 versus 5. That roster would be insane. Well, maybe we should do something. I'll see if I can get something together for next week. What a potential Golden Boy versus Top Rank card might look like. Put some comments in the chat if you want to. But there's some great fighters on both sides. I would love to see it as well. And Bob sort of agreed to it without sort of agreeing to it, if that makes sense. He said, yeah, but it would depend on the fights and this. Well, of course it would depend on the fights. But I'm not quite sure it'll work because whether... you can have, there'd be 5 big fights on a card, whether that sort of makes sense in the States. They'd have to start it really early. And it's not like Saudi Arabia going back to the States where it's pretty much an all-day affair, 5 versus 5, especially if there was like 3 10-rounders and 2 12-rounders. It's a big night of fights. I don't know, but I love the concept. I really do. Would we see it in Australia? Who would it be? Would it be, well, obviously No Limit versus Ace Boxing or Tasman Fighters? You could throw all of them in there. Maybe we could do one. Maybe it's Tasman Fighters versus Ace Boxing, and the winner then fights No Limit. I think it'd be great. I love the concept, but only once or twice a year though. So Andy, 100% Lynden, Rocky, and Creed. Yes. Just answer the question, guys. If I'm not right, let me know. When I walk out of the when I finished watching the Rocky movies, it's like, yes. And when Creed, I was like, bit of a yawn. All right, Kyle, do we have any Taylor Robinson news? I know she's training in Florida at the moment, but she's been quiet since the draw. I think they'd be working on a few things, Kyle. I think she was very, very lucky in that last fight. So I think they'll be working on a few things with her, which is not a bad thing, but she's only young. So why not get some training over in the States, get some good sparring over there, go back to the drawing board, make yourself a better fighter. And I just think she got a little bit ahead of herself, Kyle, because some of the fighters she was fighting, let's face it, weren't up to the level. And I think she realised in that last fight, and she was so lucky. I had the other girl winning by about 3 rounds. So extremely lucky. Yes, everybody, subscribe, share, and smash that like button, please. All right, Peter, Harbin is an average fighter that has been exposed in recent fights. Yeah, well, it's a good way to put it, Peter, and that's, I suppose, as much as you want to, you might want to tiptoe around it, that is facts. Stepped up and fought Michael Zarafa, ironed out in 2 rounds. Stepped up and fought Rowan Murdoch, although it was at a heavier weight, so you've got to give him a little bit of leave there. And that was a close fight. But then that last fight, yeah, he stepped up and I thought he did actually okay in that fight. But when the heat came on, he just wasn't able to go with him, and he got stopped. So, but no, I think he's done it so far. I think he'll go back to the drawing board again and learn from it. Got to remember, he had no amateur career, just the MMA career. So he's only had about 18 fights, whatever it might be. So it's time for Isaac. But I'm with you, Peter. I'm not. Again, I'll say I don't think he's quite at the level, but I'm hoping that he keeps learning and gets the best out of himself. Has Wilson been rushed onto the world title contention too early? Because it looks that way. Struggled with England and fought Valdez soon after. What did I call him? Ortiz, I think I might have called him, didn't I? Sorry, Valdez is what I meant. Look, when the world title fights come up, Cole, you've got to take them. I didn't think he was ready for Navarrete. No, not by any stretch. I think he was a replacement for someone else in that fight. So when the opportunity came up, I went, ooh, that's a tough fight. That's a tough one. And I thought, wow, geez, you're in the sport to fight for world titles. So are you ever going to be ready? So I fully applauded him for taking the fight. And of course, the Valdez fight, 100%. I thought he was ready. He did struggle with Jackson John England, but he's had a good win since as well, has England. And looks like he's been geared toward the world scene as well. Whether he's good enough, we'll see. But yeah, look, I think Liam, I think he's done his apprenticeship. He's only had what, 12 or 13 fights. He hasn't had a lot of fights, Liam Wilson. So I've got no dramas learning on the job. And yeah, he's been stopped a couple of times. But I don't think he's really been knocked around that much. And I think he's doing the right thing by coming back to Australia and fighting Dib. But again, the world titles come up, you have to take them. You can't turn it down saying, well, no, I don't think I'm quite ready. Well, take it. If you lose, well, you go back to the drawing board, which is what he did. So I don't think he was rushed, Kyle. I just think the opportunity came up and he took it. That's all. And I think he gave such a good fight with Navarrete that when the option came up to fight at Valdez, that he was put in the mix. And that's what it can also do for you. Even if you lose, you can be in a position to get another big fight down the track, which is what happened. He got another crack at the world title with Valdez. So Wilson has always beaten himself by not being able to read the fight and choosing to try and bang. Yeah, well, his name, Mr. Damage. I think he sometimes gets a little bit caught up in it all. But again, he'll be the first one to say that. Benny Harrington said the same thing. Interviewed Glenn Jennings in Vegas after the fight with Valdez, and he said the same thing, if you can remember. He just needs to get himself back on track mentally, and we think we can reload and go again. So he just has to not let emotions and that get in the way. He just has to stick to the game plan. And if he does tend to stray he needs to be able to come back. That's the issue. All fighters sometimes go off the game plan and lose their composure or maybe get rocked or rattled, wherever it might be. But it's the ability to come on, and maybe they get sucked into slugging when they don't want to slug, but they're able to adjust and go back to the game plan. Liam hasn't been able to do that so far, so that's what he needs to do, I think, going forward, which is what I know they were going to work on after his last fight. Excuse me there, guys. He's got an itchy nose. I apologise for that. I want Golden Boy versus Matchroom. Aussie fighters would help Eddie smoke Oscar. All right, so Golden Boy and Matchroom. All right, so the Matchroom guys, you could probably throw, I suppose Jai would be in there, I gather. You could throw him in there. I don't know. Let me know who you think. They've all got so many fighters, but it'd be great to see. Well, put the girls in there as well. You'd have Sky Nicholson as well. So you could probably put Sky and Jai in there straight away. They're going to get you a couple of wins, aren't they, with Eddie? So maybe Justice Honey against the top sort of 15 heavyweight would be good as well. So Peter, Carl agrees with Peter. I'm not so sure Liam has a ring IQ to make adjustments in the fight. Well, hopefully we'll see that soon, Carl. The fact that they've admitted to it and recognised it and are working on it, the rest is up to Liam now, I suppose, isn't it? It's not. Look, it shouldn't really be a big thing, should it? To be able to say, okay, we're going to prepare a certain way, but in the corner, you need to snap out of it and get back on track. I think it's a small adjustment to make. But again, then it comes down to whether he's good enough to actually to beat those elite fighters, which again, hopefully we'll get the chance to see. Opataya versus all of the No Limit fighters all at once. Yeah, that would. I'd still back Opataya, Peter. Does Tasman fighters only have 4 fighters they promote? Yeah, I was thinking about that before when I said about Ace Boxing and No Limit. I know it's obviously Jai and Justice, Connor Wallace. Who else is there? They lost Dana Coolwell. They lost Isaac Hardman, of course. Not quite sure. Taylor Robertson was another one. Yeah, I'm not sure. I do know though, Kyle, that Tasman have been really busy, obviously with Jai and Justice with their fights, and I know Mick Francis has been to Saudi quite a few times now, back and forth. So that's probably why they haven't been able to put on as many promotions, and hence why they don't have as many fighters now. But I think I've said here on here before that they have got a few things in the wing, so we'll wait to see on that one. All right, All-Star Boxing, there you go. Benny Harrington, just logged on, plenty of talk about Liam. Good to see, hard at the moment in prep. See you all and Jai. Well, there you go, guys. Straight from the horse's mouth, Benny Harrington. And you're right, there's been quite a lot of chat about Liam in the chat tonight, Ben. More so about can he keep his focus during the fights and stay on the straight and narrow and stay focused. And I know, I'm not sure at what point you came into the chat, but we just said that he's recognised it, acknowledged it, and now the rest is up to Liam. But at least they're talking about him, Benny, and they're all talking about maybe a potential fight with George. So we'll see how we go. But yep, July 10. Let's hope we see a new and improved Liam and focused. One thing I give Liam is he doesn't make excuses. He just gets on with the job. Wish him nothing but the best. Yep. Well, that's a very rare thing too, isn't it, Carl? I did actually, he was on the same flight as me the morning after, going from Phoenix to Las Vegas, and you're right. I said, he just shrugged and said, look, got a few things to work on, didn't go my way, but I can't wait to go again. No excuses. So, all right, Andy. Liam Wilson's problem was not listening to the corner. He was having success versus Valdez, but thought he could finish him, got tunnel vision, went for it, but got derailed. If he listens, he can win. Well, I thought he fought really well for the first 2 or 3 rounds. When obviously he stood his ground against Valdez. Now, we all know Valdez is pretty one-dimensional. He likes to stand his ground, dig his toes in, and just let them go. That's his game style. And if you're standing right in front of him in the pocket, well, of course, you're going to be just a sitting duck, a target there for him. Liam had success early when he used his distance, used his straight punches a little bit more. Went a couple of good body shots he threw as well. So, but then when Valdez landed a couple, he got sucked into standing in the pocket, and ultimately that's what led to his downfall in, what was it, the 7th round, I think it was. Was going to say Jai versus Zerdo at cruiserweight in a unification, but Zerdo just left Golden Boy Promotions recently. Yeah, I did see that, Andy. Isn't it interesting with all the cruiserweights out there? They've all been talking about fighting each other, but I haven't seen any of them say, I want Jai Patai next. Especially the Bill and Smiths, and he's fighting Riapur, of course, and not so much from Zerdo. I think he's a type of fighter that would fight anybody, but yeah, when you look at all these interviews, not much talk about fighting Jai Pattaya. He can definitely mix it up with the best. He just needs to make those adjustments. This is Liam Wilson. Yep, he rattled Navarrete. Benny says, all excuses don't mean shit in boxing. The ref raises one fella's hand. That's in the story, isn't it? Yeah. It's a good outlook to have, Benny. And look, that's probably the good thing about Australian boxing at the moment. All the fighters tend to have that mentality, don't they? They want to take on the best fighters. They want to test themselves. They don't want to tiptoe around it. And look at all of them this year. And look, right back, we've had Jason Maloney in there with Inouye, way back with Jeff Horn taking on Crawford. This year alone, we've had Kambosos. He's fought Haney. He's fought Lomachenko, Wilson, and Navarrete, and then Valdez. So you got Liam Paro with Matthias. So it's one thing you can't fault, and even Zarafa with Lara. You can't fault Aussie fighters for stepping up and having a crack. against the best. That Zerdo report was retracted. He's still with Golden Boy. Okay, Kyle, thanks for clearing that up, mate. I wonder how Jai will go against Usyk if he goes back to cruiserweight. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Look, I don't. The thing with the Usyk thing, I just don't understand why you would go from heavyweight back to cruiserweight. As we spoke with Will earlier, all the big fights are at heavyweight. Now, I know he's beaten Joshua, he's beaten Dubois. Does he really want a piece of Zhang? Even if he goes back and fights at cruiserweight and wins and unifies the cruiserweight division again, is it really, I don't know. Is it really well, I suppose if you're beating Jai Pataya in there as well, it's a pretty big achievement. But yeah, I believe it when I see it. To be honest, Mark, yeah, and look, I'd love to see Jai with Usyk. Don't get me wrong, but I've just got really, and I just can't really see Usyk coming back to cruiserweight, especially trying to get the weight off. He weighed in at 223, I think, for his last fight, which is about, I think it's 101.5 kilos if you're going to try and work it out in the old metric system. And you're going down to what is it, about 90? It's a lot of weight to lose. I know he has to work hard to put on the weight to get up to heavyweight, so he might be able to lose it okay, but I'm just not quite sure what it achieves. Okay, you go back, I'm sure everyone will pat him on the back, and that's great. Unless it's a Jai Pataya fight, I don't think fighting any other guys really makes sense. So maybe if he said, look, I'm going to stay at heavyweight. If Jai unifies the cruiserweight title or anyone unifies the cruiserweight title, then I'll go back and have one fight for that cruiserweight title, but I'm not going to go back and try and unify all the belts myself. There's still some big fights. I mean, the money he'd be getting at heavyweight will be 5 times what he would get at cruiserweight. So it just doesn't make sense at this stage of his career to have those types of fights. You want the money fights. Liam still has a chance, in my opinion. Gave 2 champs tough fights. If he gets another chance at the title, there's possibility of winning, no doubt. I agree. Carl says, facts, Benny. He's got the mindset. Just get Yusuf out of the way and climb back up there. So look, it's a risky fight. There's no doubt about it. Let's face it. Yusuf Dib is a very, very good fighter. But you got to admire, again, coming back and putting it all on the line against Yusuf Dib. Because if he doesn't beat Dib, well, obviously there's some real doubts about going forward. But hats off to him for coming back and fighting a legitimate fighter back here in Australia. Will be a big card. Usyk won't go back to cruiserweight, says Carl. I call bullshit on that. Yeah, I tend to agree with that, Carl. Kyle says, Golden Boy versus Matchroom. All right, here's some fights. Opataya versus Zerdo. Paro versus Barbosa. Nicholson versus Majanovic, is it? Not enough Australian fighters to fill the entire card, but there's 3 winners already there. And I know it's good examples you put up there, Kyle. The other thing that they're talking about is nationalities or countries fighting each other. You know, USA versus Mexico. Well, the only problem I see with the USA versus Mexico is there's a lot of Mexican Americans. So which side do they fall on? Is it where you were born or your heritage? There's a lot of good American fighters that have Mexican heritage, or the Mexican fighters that were born in America. So I'm not sure that would work. I'm just also a little bit dubious of whether that sort of draws a bit of a line that we don't really want to cross over. The whole race versus race or country versus country in the current climate we live in at the moment might be a little bit risky. So maybe stay away from that. But yeah, I just love the promoters versus promoters. I think it's a great concept. Not too often though, just maybe once a year. Or maybe we have 2 a year, but amongst the 4 different promoters. Unless Tim Tszyu wants to sign with Matchroom after PBC falls, he will need an international US promoter to deal with afterwards. Yeah, well, it's been brought up a few times, Kyle, that with Tim, how long does he stay with No Limit? Because in my opinion, he doesn't really need No Limit anymore. I think they've served their purpose. I totally understand why No Limit want to keep Tim. Don't get me wrong. He's the golden goose, isn't he? But from Tim's perspective, in my opinion, I think No Limit have taken him as far as they can take him. So now's the time to now go off with either a Matchroom. Not so sure whether it's Golden Boy, but Matchroom to me seems the perfect fit for me. And if he does jump ship, I'm just not sure what happened to him in Vegas would have happened if he had been with Matchroom or Top Rank, or which is another possibility, of course, Top Rank or a Golden Boy. I don't know. Maybe I'm just imagining things, but I just don't think he gets stiff like he did or has been since that fight if he had been with one of those big promoters. Usyk won't go back down. He's just talking plenty of bigger money fights. Take heavyweight, and I doubt he has more than 3 fights either way. Yep, that's the way I see it too, Batman. I just think he's, as they might say, trolling the media at the moment to give him something to think about. I just, again, can't see the sense in going down the cruiserweight. Unless, let's just say Jai Patel unifies the titles over the next 18 months, then it might be an option. But, yeah, I just think there's too many big money fights at heavyweight. I would love to see UK versus Oceania, male and female. Yeah. Yeah. Christian versus Muslim fight night held in Saudi Arabia. Fantastic idea. Or they could do black versus white, hold it in South Africa. Wow. Let's hope we don't go down that route, John. But yeah, I just think, I know you're only sort of taking the piss a bit there, but it does open up a bit of can of worms, doesn't it, when you've got nationalities or countries or whatever it might be. Yeah, I don't think. Maybe what we need, John, we need the left versus right, the red versus blue fight night. So if you don't, I'm sure everyone knows what left is and what right is. Left wing versus right wing. I think that would be the fight card. The left wing fighters versus left wing versus right wing proponents. That would be an awesome fight night, I think, too. They can, instead of protesting, instead of all the social media barbs and carrying on, they can actually get it on in the ring, and we can settle it once and for all. Democrats versus Republicans in the States, Labor versus Liberal here in Australia and the UK. But I just think that whatever country it is, left wing versus right wing would be the way to go. Who wins? I got a feeling the left wings are they'd maybe not as masculine as they probably need to be. I wouldn't have thought. I reckon the right wing would have them covered, but that's just me. Benny, thanks for the comments, mate. There's an A and B side. When Aussies go to USA, we are the C side. Yeah, well, you obviously know better than anyone. I'd love to sort of get you on one night for a bit of a chat, mate, and just see what it's actually like over there in the training camp and the press conferences and the weigh-ins, a little bit behind the scenes stuff about exactly what goes on when an Aussie fighter goes to the USA for a big fight. So maybe that might be something we might look at down the track, where it's just a behind the scenes look. Not so much about what Liam's up to or what Vegas is up to, but just about to let us in on what happens right from the negotiations of the fight, when it's signed, when you're on the plane, when you get there, how does it work? How does the training camp work? How does the whole build-up work? And, of course, what happens on fight night? It'd be good, mate. It'd be good to get a bit of insight. What's that there? Do white versus Indigenous here in Australia. No limit card holder in Alice Springs. I reckon the Indigenous might give the whites a bit of a touch-up there, though, John. I reckon the Indigenous can fight. All right. It would float like a Led Zeppelin, surely would. Yeah, I don't think we'd want to touch that one. So, guys, we've got about 5 minutes or so to go. I'll wait for another couple of comments there. Now, I know, don't be too hard on John here, by the way, guys. I think he's just taking the piss a little bit, but I think he's sort of getting at what I said before about, do we bring in nationalities or races or countries, whatever it might be. But look, who would win? USA versus Mexico, UK versus USA, Australia versus England or UK, whatever it might be. Some great fights out there. What other concepts could we come up with? I reckon there's a few different ones out there anyway. So, Andy, hang on, we've got Carl. The lefties would complain too much in the lead up to it. They might glue themselves to the ring canvas, Carl, and not want to fight. They might protest the fact that we're subjecting them to getting in the ring. I don't know. Can you imagine them at the rules meeting and all that sort of stuff? All the whinging and complaining and all the clauses they'd put in there, and the rehydration clauses and all the little things they'd put in there. They'd just complain and whinge, wouldn't they? The lefties. And then on the night, it wouldn't be to the liking, so they'd chuck a hissy fit on the floor and refuse to go in the ring. Anyway. Andy says PBC there for PBC fighters first. They likely used Tim temporarily to get the belt. Now they got it. They won't bother about Tim, hence why they're putting the two house fighters against each other. I would have thought, though, Andy, I do understand what you're saying there. Why they wouldn't look at someone like Tim Tszyu, see him as being very marketable, and maybe try and sign him up. Seeing what he has to offer over there, and maybe looking on the lines of if we've got Tim, we can then have Fundora and Spence fight. Tim can fight the winner. Maybe Crawford's in there at some way. I know he's a free agent, but in there as well. But worst case, have Tim fight another one of their fighters and the winners fight each other. So Spence Fundora fights the winner of Tim versus somebody. And again, they keep it all in-house. Tim's very marketable over there and a big fan base here in Australia, which means obviously a lot more eyes on pay-per-views. So, yeah. Anyway, let's hope PBC aren't around too much longer because they shit me. All right, yep, we have Larfield on July 3 and then Toisi, Polkinghorn, Wilson on July 10. Geez, a couple of big fight nights coming up for All-Star Boxing. Polkinghorn is about to be a wrecking ball through the division. He's an absolute killer. Yeah, I think is he from the UK? So Ben will be able to answer that. Originally from the UK, but seen a little bit of him as an amateur, and yeah, it definitely looks like he's got the goods. That's for sure. Robbie, good content as usual. Thanks, Robbie. Enjoy the rest of the week, guys. And I appreciate that, mate. And having said that, unless we get another comment or two come through, I think we will call it a night. I'll just wait a little bit there. But some other things, guys, just a couple of bit of housekeeping before we go on. Or next week, the show is going to be on Tuesday night, not the Monday night. I can't make it on Monday. I've got another engagement in Melbourne I have to go to. So I won't be there on Monday night. So, yeah, Tuesday night, same time, 7 p.m. Same bat time, bat channel, all that sort of thing. But next Tuesday, which will be the 18th of June. Sorry, 18th of June. And on Sunday, again, Liam Paro, Sabril, Matthias, the live watch-along from 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Time. So jump on again, whether you're watching it yourself or you can't watch it or you don't want to pay for it or whatever it might be, jump on. Good way to get updates and talk amongst other fight fans or just listen to me waffle on for a couple of hours. Yeah, Carl, sounds like a lawyer's playground. It does. Andy, PBC sinking ship, no platform dollars like had at Fox or Showtime. Amazon will show, but PBC has to source funds. I'm not quite sure how it all works, Andy, but I'm just not sure how long it lasts. I like the fact they've tried something different with Amazon, but it's how long Amazon says, yeah, this whole boxing thing, yeah, it's too much rooting around. So maybe we'll let it go. So, yep, Benny, let's go Paro. So, yeah, so Sunday morning, Puerto Rico. Can't wait for Liam Paro to have a crack. I think it's either our 10th or 11th Aussie for the year that's fought for a world title. So get behind the Aussies. They're all doing great things overseas and here as well. But let's hope we can get another world champion to add to Jaya Pataya, Sky Nicholson, and Shanika Johnson. So, guys, we're going to call it a night. We're a couple of minutes early, but I think we've got a fair bit of content in for tonight. And again, we'll see you next week, but on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. So thanks again. Have a great week, and we'll catch you then.